Hi guys, thanks for watching another one of our videos on our blog. So this time around we're going to be interviewing Gera and Misha. They're two founders of Six Pack Bags. It's a great company, one of our clients, has been for the last 2 years. And we'll be asking them some questions about the company, about how the company actually was founded, idea behind it, some challenges and some good things that have been happening in the last number of years. And then we'll just go into some questions. If you want to answer, I'll ask, and we'll go from there. So let's start. Misha, so you're the original founder of the company.
I am.
Tell us about the company, how the idea came about, where it came from, and just drive us through it.
Sure. So fitness was always my passion. Prior to being the founder of this company and the chief creative officer as my title, I was actually in the family business, which was real estate development. What that meant is that my office was my car. I'd leave the house really early in the morning and I wouldn't come home till late at night, and I had to drive around between different job sites, the city, planning department and such. But because fitness was my passion, big part of fitness is your nutrition. It's how you eat. Well, it's very difficult to eat appropriately when you're out and about all the time, which means you have to go to restaurants, which means you eat unhealthy food. Bringing your food with you, which some people do or did at that point in soft shell coolers, was not something that was appealing to me because the soft shell coolers were ugly and bulky and stood out, where I was driving around in a nice car, dressed nice. It just wasn't something that felt right. And because I was thinking about this all the time, one night I actually had a dream. And I jumped up, I grabbed a yellow Post-it and a pencil, and I doodled what then became the Innovator 300 and 500, which is our best-selling bags. And from that point on, through a series of crazy different events, we ended up being a full-fledged company with multiple product lines, designing bags that carry food and gear for people who are very serious about fitness.
Great. Tell us briefly about, so you have the number of lines, product lines in the company. So you have the fitness bags, you also have the meals, and tell us about that and how both of those products really come into play together and kind of jive together well.
That's actually a great question, and specifically for what you do, and what you do greatly helps us in that process. And here's why. Everybody knows that the future is online. Everybody knows that communicating with your customers is extremely important. If you don't do that well, you're not going to be a successful company. And thankfully for you, we do that pretty well. What that means is that when we started selling our products, obviously we have 4 sales channels. Online, direct to consumer, which should be the most important, eventually will be the most important. Retail, which are our big branded partners like GNC and Vitamin Shop. Stores that everybody knows that are all over the world, that have a centralized corporate office that makes decisions for all the stores. Wholesale stores, which are mom and pop small stores, and direct to international. But ultimately, they're really not our customers. Ultimately, the end users are our customers. Ultimately, it's the people who carry the bags day in, day out. And talking to those people, understanding what those people want and think is extremely, extremely important. And Instagram, Facebook, website, all of that is extremely important because we understand that because of our age and because of the city we're in and because of the society that we're in. We play with that. Now, obviously, we don't know everything, and we're learning thanks to you. But we have our pulse, we have our hands on the pulse of the fitness society. And what we noticed by our social media presence is how many of our core customers are very serious about their food. They put pictures up of their food. They put pictures up of how they live their life. And because nutrition is such a big part of that, calorie counting, low sugar, low sodium is extremely important, and what they carry inside the bags is extremely important. What we identified through that process was that they needed the right type of food and that they don't eat heavy sauces And so that's our third product. We have hot sauces. And so we have a bag to carry your food. We can sell you that food, and we can sell you the hot sauce to flavor your food. And thanks to being online, we can produce those products.
Perfect, excellent. Next question we'll have is, what role does the website play in your overall marketing strategy? So we'll switch to you.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So, CEO of the company, started with Misha from the grounds up, building this, what has been just an amazing ride. And part of it from the beginning has been centered around our e-com. The website right now for us, and has always been, is it's our store. It's where we tell the story, the importance of nutrition, as Misha pointed out, and what our brand stands for. And so since the beginning of the company, a lot of effort has gone into making sure that we look great, we tell the story, we have the most up-to-date product, and really focus on driving the brand. Because unlike in retail stores where you can't control the environment, in your own store, which is the e-commerce store, you can. And you guys have been instrumental in that.
Thanks for answering that. What are your thoughts about trends in the e-commerce fitness space, and specifically as it relates to both online and offline presence, just in the industry overall?
Sure. So it really comes down to, we have a pretty young customer base. And by that I mean they're in their early 20s to late 30s. And they are very socially active. They all have online presence. They spend a lot of time on Instagram, as Misha was alluding to. They take pictures. They like to show their progress. And so we do a lot of work to make sure that we can identify the segments and reach out to them, where it be on blogs, where it be on social, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, and really go after those influencers. And so a lot of work has been done to get out ahead, get to the influencers, and ultimately drive everybody back to our website. And it has to do with Facebook ads and AdWords and all of the work that happens around it, but it ultimately comes back to driving the traffic back to the website, to our home.
Absolutely, great.
Let me add something to that. Segmentation is extremely important. Creating the right message is extremely important. For what we do, I'm going to make a statement for what we do, but I think it's true actually across the board. Unless you're some huge brand, vanilla doesn't work. People are looking for things that speak to them. And those things can push the envelope a little bit because people want to feel right.
Yeah, and I think that this discussion is really great because ultimately it's not just talking about cider or talking about six pack, but it's also talking about some of the leaders such as you in the industry actually helping other companies, other startups in some of the wins and some of the successes you guys had. So really, it's going to be also an instructional and educational component also in this video. So I think it's great information you guys are providing. It's really useful.
Cool.
So next question.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but let's talk about those pitfalls, because I think that's quite important. Because when we started out, what was interesting is and the question of platforms, who to go with, how to handle kind of your home base. When we started out, there was only really Magento. Now, the Shopify just pretty much came out. They had one or two themes, and it just didn't seem like that was a long-term solution. And we jumped into Magento because that seemed to be like the most obvious reason. We're growing, we need better capabilities, we need to be able to customize, and I still think that was the right decision then. Of course, now you have so many more options. But what you have to make sure is when you start out is you have to make sure you have the right partners who are going to help you implement what you need to do on the website. Because now, no matter if you go with WooCommerce, Shopify, Magento, you feel like, oh, it's a quick template and I'm just going to put my images up. But you will quickly run out of that road, and you're going to need partners who are going to hold your hand. And that's going to be much more important than what platform you go with. And Unfortunately, there were some hiccups along the way, and we had to learn the hard way. And ultimately, that landed with you guys. But you have to make sure that you vet out those partners, no matter what platform you go with.
Absolutely, yeah. Partners are highly important, but it's also, as you alluded to, these platforms, they do pretty much the same thing. Some have one feature, another has another feature, but at the end of the day, it's how the platform as a whole is utilized, right? And how you're able to scale with the platform. So as the business grows, some are able to scale more, others are not. So the decision that you make, as you did up front, was highly important. So the direction that was given to you, or the research that was done by your internal team, was the right one, because Magento is definitely a very scalable solution. It's more enterprise solution. Others do the same thing, but there are differences and some challenges with each of those platforms.
I would also add that you get what you pay for is an axiom that's true across the board in all of life, and cutting corners has a price.
Mm-hmm.
So given that the future is online, no doubt about it, 100%, read the articles, watch the news, know what's happening. If your presence to the outside world is preeminently your website and you're cutting corners, you're going to pay for it, either now or later, but you're going to pay for it.
Absolutely. So that actually leads to another question. So from the general strategy, so there's such a thing called omni-strategy approach, right? So what would you say, what piece your web presence to your offline presence play? And is that omni-strategy approach important to companies to utilize?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think that, and Misha alluded, and he really spoke to the kind of the core of what the distribution channels of Six-Pack Fitness is. And we are international, we have retail distribution, we have wholesale distribution, and of course there's the e-com. And now the customers very much expect that when you go from a store to a social media source to a website, they get this consistent messaging. And it's much more challenging than one would think about getting all of those campaigns up and running them smoothly. The other side of, the offline, there's our store, but people walk in, and thank God we have a pretty hefty traffic, but then they walk out. And we know that, listen, if you're converting at a couple of percentage points, you're doing well. You got to bring back people. And again, that campaign of bringing people back, retargeting them, and retargeting them in a way that is completely consistent with everywhere they're seeing you is quite important.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, we came up with few campaigns. We have, hashtag travel fit that we own, and not own, but in terms of if you go to hashtag travel fit, you'll predominantly see pictures of our customers using our product. We have lead the pack. And so we've been able to utilize these kind of offline messages and using posters and leaflets and booklets and our wholesale stores to keep driving the same message, but again, ultimately bringing people back to our website where they can learn more about meal prepping and nutrition.
Great. Going back to a point that Misha made, as well as I think Gera, you too. When we're talking about you get what you pay for, specifically what I'm interested in the history of Six-Pack. So you've utilized and you currently utilize many different vendors, whether it's for web, whether it's for other, I'm not going to mention, I'll leave that up to you, portions and components of your business. What I'm curious to hear is, what are some of the pitfalls that people should be looking out for, specifically in this case with software? So whether it's web, maybe it's even whether it's design or even SEO on the marketing side, what are some of the pitfalls they should be looking out for? And ultimately, I think this is the reason that Cider is now supporting you, because there were some pitfalls that you guys went through. Absolutely. And that's how we got connected.
Sure. As you ask the questions, I'm giving you the answers off the top of my head. One of my biggest telltale signs now in anything is if somebody overpromises and underdelivers, cut them off sooner. Mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, and I'm fortunate in this case because of our personal relationship, but that's the word, relationship. Relationship is extremely important. You want to make sure that whoever you partner with, my opinion, no matter what industry you're in, is a partner. It's extremely important that, in your case, that you invest in developers and engineers, but it is equally as important that I know I can pick up a phone and reach somebody and talk to somebody. And that happened, right? On a weekend, I reached out to you because I just, for fun, checked out my website and it was down. It was a weekend.
Yeah.
You got on it right away, and within hours, my website was up and running. That was not the case with previous vendors. So maybe I got the benefit because I'm also your friend, but I think that's probably how you run your business.
Well, I 100% agree with Misha. So we kind of live here by actually his father's mantra. So I actually thought that you would go there, but it's the three quotes, right? You don't always want the super expensive. You definitely don't want the super cheapest. You want the one that's in the middle. And we've actually experienced the spectrum of both, right? When we were just starting out, and we were bootstrapping it, still are, the company, and we were thinking, okay, what can we afford? And that's where Misha was talking a lot about making mistakes, where we would just, oh my God, they can give us a website for $5,000, woohoo! Yeah. And then we would pay 4 times more on all the problems we would have with somebody else fixing all the mistakes that, so we were a billable number. And with the billable number, it's exactly what Misha was saying. You call them and you're going to get the service between these hours and these hours. It's 5 to 9, and anything out of that, you're going to be billed, twice the number. Yeah. And we would be getting, they were very knowledgeable, no doubt. But the bills we were getting were just astronomical. And we'll talk about the relationship, but when you came over and you said, listen, we could be so much cheaper, at first we were like, well, we're friends, but we were very hesitant at first.
I'm sure.
You weren't the cheapest, not by far, but you said, I could be cheaper. And we put our toe in the water with you, and we quickly found out by how much more we were overpaying just because of the name. And we went with the name because we were burned so much by the cheapest of the cheap.
Right. No, but I think it's a great point. The relationship, whether it's personal or whether it's a relationship that's referred, those are the best relationships that you should kind of go after, right? So these are the ones that are kind of proven tested. So it's a great point. Next question I want to ask is related to management of these projects, right? So any of the projects that you guys have. In your experience, and what have you experienced as far as communication is concerned? And you've also alluded to that, so picking up the phone and getting an answer. But specifically, day-to-day operations of a project. So with your Magento property,
sure.
Right? So having tools, having communication with your vendor. What some of the pitfalls and benefits and kind of upsides have you seen, and that have you experienced that you can share with us?
Well, I think that we kind of, as the saying goes, right? The two marbles inside the pocket kind of polish each other, right? And so I think that that's what happened with us. Over time, we really figured out our own style, the best time to work, the times were available were not, and the projects that come along. There are projects that are big projects. For instance, we just did an M2 migration, right? Big project. And then there's updates that constantly happen. We use Trello for that. I think your team really likes it. Yeah. We use Trello, a fantastic tool. And then again, it's segmented into long-term projects and the quick fixer-uppers. And then there's, of course, the emergency. The emergency has been either call you, or we actually call the kind of our project lead direct, and they're extremely responsive and jump on things when they see the emergency situations that happen. Yeah. So that's kind of our experience as far as been working with you.
Yeah, thanks. So I think just to add to that point also, we know that some of our customers or our potential future partners or customers, in many cases they utilize offline tools, Excel, things like that, to track their projects. And those are huge pitfalls. So there's a lot of things that can be falling through the cracks. So as you alluded to, thank you. So with Trello, it's one of the many tools that are out there, right? So it's a project management tool or a tracker, if you will. So these types of tools are highly useful, and they encourage communication not through email or not through some sort of offline tools. But it really helps in making sure that those tasks are picked up by the right individuals, right? And that they're not only tracked but also estimated. So it's a helpful tool. So
and then there's the history, which is then you go back and you know exactly who said what and why things were done the way they are. Because we definitely tend to forget, especially when you have a lot of projects going at the same time.
Well, what I would add to that is delegation.
Mm-hmm.
I, fortunately or unfortunately, have more than one business, and I'm more of an entrepreneurial person than a manager. Gera's a better manager than I am. Gera gets into the weeds and interacts with you on a business level a lot more than I do. Being able to use those tools, like you said, the Trello, right? Like, so somebody in our position, my position, would still have to learn to do that, and I highly suggest that they do. But I think one of the massive advantages, and I don't use that word lightly, in finding again the right partners, is feeling that I don't have to micromanage everything, is feeling that my partner, service provider, can handle some things without me even telling them, has a brain, can look at something and go, now that's not right, you know, the spelling's wrong, let me change that, or this is a little off, let me change that. It's really great when somebody can bring you solutions instead of only ask you, so what other problems do you see? And I feel you guys have done that. I think in our brief interactions that I've had with you, because I'm not hands-on, you even offer advice. And I think that's hugely important, because you're not only looking at our situation, you're looking at the situation of your other customers, and you're in your industry, and that's the whole point, right, is to expedite success, and working with the right people, that's what you get.
Yep, great, thanks. Moving on to back to the marketing side of the business. So
Sure.
When you guys make decisions, so your marketing department, Gilbert, or yourself, Gera, or whoever is handling this side of the business, what are these decisions based on? So for example, you need to change a banner on your site, or you need to expand something or move something around. What do you do? Do you look at competition? Do you look at trends in the industry? Tell us about that.
Well, I guess I'll start. So it's all of the above, right? And again, it depends on what project you're working on. There's constantly updates as far as we got new bags, we got new flavors, we got new colors, and just by making an announcement, you have to change, let's say, a banner. Mm-hmm. We were actually, just as you walked in, we were just talking about the Shop Now button, which I think Misha will be able to talk more about. And as he is the creative chief, he looked at it and said, that doesn't look right. And we started to look into it, and he made the right decisions. But ultimately, we have partners like you, we have a couple of other partners that help us really navigate and put data behind it. So there's sources like Hotjar that record our website and tell us where somebody clicks. There's also an understanding from the SEO, CM perspective, what changes need to be done. So what we try to do, and of course Optimizely, to test, A/B test everything with you. There are a lot of tools out there that help you make decisions less on the gut level, more on the data level. Now, it's sometimes hard because, as we were just talking about it, do you want to have an ugly site that converts better, or do you want to have a pretty site that converts less? Well, we here like to have a pretty site that converts more. So it's a lot of, sometimes it's like, but man, you know, we want to change it, but it might not look as best. So we constantly have these back and forth good conversations about what is the best and how to move it forward. But we try to use data that's available to us from the data as much as we can. And then I'll turn it over from the creative side, because obviously the look comes from
I'm going to give you an answer that's totally counterintuitive to everything that we've got going on and to what you do. I'm old school, whether it's by age or whatever. I think the gut is an extremely powerful tool. I think another word for the gut is intuition. I think another word for intuition is experience. Yeah. And as far as I know, and I'm into it, 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 what's the word? No, artificial and AI, artificial intelligence, hasn't been invented yet. They're working on it. And so all the analytics don't mean much until there's a human being analyzing those analytics. And so far, I'll be pompous to say that often those analytics end up lining up with the intuition I had to begin with. Mm-hmm. Not always, and that's what's important. And more important is when your gut tells you one thing, but you're dead wrong and it's something else. But I think both are important. I think you have to use all the tools that are out there, but I think it's extremely dangerous. And I think a lot of millennials are there. And I don't think this is something Gera and I often agree on, but people who are like, they want to run their company purely by analytics, I think that's wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for those answers. So next question, and it sort of alludes to what you just answered about tools such as Optimizely and or Misha, some of the other ones. Tell us about those tools specifically. Which of those tools do you utilize that actually help you in increasing profits? Analyzing the changes that you make to the site, and then tracking how those converts into real dollars.
Sure. Well, I think it all works together, right? So you got Hotjar that looks into heat map. We use it primarily for heat map. It also records the way that customers move about, so you can track the journey of the customer through your website, and there's some learnings to be had there. With Optimizely, it really comes down to, button here, this way, and then you can test it, and you can ultimately have your customer tell you what they feel is right. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times there is a gridlock because you don't, you like it this way, but you like it this way, but ultimately what matters is what customers are going to convert. Right. And so I think that there are tools that are now a lot more popular. Instapage, we use that a lot to create landing pages too. So there are tools out there that help you get to that level of knowing. And the worst thing for any marketeer, as we all know, is doing something without knowing the end result. Yeah. And then it's like, well, we're doing it, and I think the popular terminology here, we're doing it to build a brand. Yeah. And you can't measure it. And if you can't measure it, then you can't scale it. And so the more you can utilize these tools, and the more or the better precise your next move is going to be.
Yeah. Okay, great. Guys, I think this is all the questions that we had, right? So just to summarize, Sixpack, you guys are doing a great job, right? So your online presence is amazing. You're always iterating. You're always updating. You're always looking at the trends out there. So that's amazing. I think on the flip side, your competition is probably doing the same thing, looking at you. So you being a leader in this space. Yeah, so they're always looking at you.
We're flattered, though. We're flattered.
Of course. No, but I think, again, to reflect, this was a great conversation because you really openly provided some of these insights that are likely in the boardroom that, are kind of kept private. This is going on our blog. This can also go on your site if you wish.
Absolutely.
This is really highly useful, not only for your competition, but it's also for entrepreneurs that are looking to get into e-commerce.
Before we stop, I'm going to flip the table on you. I have a question for you.
Let's do it.
When we first talked about Cider helping us, you shared a lot of important information, and we haven't talked about that since. I'd love for you to tell me from your perspective, as I often ask, because I respect your position, what changes have you seen us go through with your help?
So I think there's a lot of changes, right? So you guys, when we begun the discussions about Cider supporting Sixpack, you guys were used to a certain way of managing your projects. When we saw that way, not only in our service, but in our in the way we're going to manage your business, or not manage your business, but manage development of Sixpack, right there, just in that, we saw massive improvements that you will see. Moving away from spreadsheets and going to a highly transparent system. Not ours, Trello. It's something that we utilize for all of our projects. This not only gives you transparency about project management, but it shows you what individuals are doing at any given time. And what I mean by that is developers. from your business standpoint, your site has evolved a lot and it continues to evolve, right? So there's many customers that really stick to their one property. They like it. A founder may like what he has done or she has done at day one, and it's very hard to move those individuals. What's great about Sixpack is you guys are very open-minded about technology. You're very open-minded about moving your site forward, expanding it, adding new features, and you're very open to suggestions from not only core Cider team, but also from our development team, right? So in the last 2 years, you guys have evolved. So you're not only, when we met, you were just selling the bags, right? You're now evolved into the meals. Who knows what else is up your sleeve? So I'm sure there's a lot of things that are coming out, and a lot of these challenges we're really looking forward to. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. So again, please visit Sixpack website. Come check out Cider as well. But I think from these guys, as you can see, they're amazing entrepreneurs who you should look up to. Thanks.
Thank you.